Hello and welcome back to my channel. I must remember to look at the camera. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to anyone that's watched, liked and even subscribed to my channel. That's just madness. And as a formality, I also wanted to apologise because I have no idea what I'm doing on YouTube or with videos. I'm not remotely tech savvy. If it turns on and it turns off and it works, brilliant. Anything beyond that is somewhat out of my capacity range. So it took me so long to build up the courage to start posting that I'm really just going with it at the moment and filming and getting stuff up as quickly as I can. I am trying to learn the fancier side of things and to edit better, but I appreciate, I'm nowhere near there yet, so thank you for bearing with me. Additionally, YouTube keeps telling me I have comments, but I can't see them. So if you have if they are there and it's not an error and you have commented, I'm not ignoring the comments. I would love to have some comments and reply if you're sharing your journey or any advice would be greatly appreciated. But I can't see them, so I'm just hoping that they're not there and that's just a sort of error with YouTube. Now on to the sort of update stuff. I've not had a great week and I've not had a great day since the early hours of this morning. And I've done something a bit stupid that may mean that I'm no longer able to use Mounjaro. But I'll come on to that. So firstly, I think I mentioned it in a previous video that I'm still on 5 milligrams of Mounjaro. I'm on my third pen and this is my second 5 milligram pen. What I have noticed is that the level of suppression has not been the same on this pen. It's not been unmanageable, and I've been able to use a lot of those tools that I talked about earlier that, where I'm trying to address the core issue and readdress my relationship with food and healthy eating. So I have been able to use that, but I've had to get used to not having the suppression as much. Since doing my jab on last Thursday, it's been completely non-existent and I've been really, really hungry. Yesterday I was hungry from the moment I woke up pretty much to the time that I went to sleep. And I had eaten, I ate good substantial meals. I didn't take pictures of them. It was a really busy day yesterday. And the pictures that I did take of one of my meals didn't do it justice. So I thought no one wants to see that. I had quite an early dinner, but it was grilled chicken and cabbage and cucumber, quite a substantial amount. And I was actually quite full from that. And I've sort of set myself it's not fasting, but I'm not going to eat heavy meals after 6 o'clock. I don't need to, as long as I'm, if there's a reason that I hadn't eaten and I needed a meal, then I would eat. But I'm typically going to try not to eat heavy meals after 6 p.m. And then I did something that I'm really annoyed with myself about. And I still don't really know why I did it. So I'd eaten. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't craving anything. I went into the kitchen and I helped myself to a small-ish handful of pick and mix, which I didn't even want. And I therefore don't know why I did it. I didn't enjoy eating them. I persevered with eating them even though I didn't want them. And I became hungry a little bit later, but by that point it was really late and I was really annoyed with myself because it just felt like I'd slipped into bad habits. I've eaten sweets and sweet things whilst on Mounjaro because I've wanted them and I'm trying to do things in moderation. Previously, any diet attempt has failed because I've completely denied myself and that hasn't been sustainable. And the reality is that I'm not going to never eat the things that I want to eat again throughout my life. So last night felt like a real failure on my behalf because actually I didn't want them. And then I woke up at 1:30 this morning with excruciating stomach pains that went on for a few hours. And then I had some not very pleasant side effects. And then went back to sleep about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then woke up with stomach pains, not to the same extent, but uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable all day. It feels like I've done rounds with Tyson. My stomach's really sore. And I can't say that is the Mounjaro, because as I said, I've eaten sweet things whilst on Mounjaro and I haven't had that. However, I also then don't know what else it would be. And the annoyance of that is that actually it was completely unnecessary, because I didn't want the pick and mix. I didn't enjoy them when I ate them. It just felt like an old bad habit. It was there, almost fear of missing out, I suppose, which didn't benefit me in any way. So if I've had then these side effects because of that, it's just been completely unnecessary. A consequence has been that I haven't eaten today because I feel really sore, and even when drinking water, it's just not sat very well. So there's that, which is just really annoying. And then leads on to the second thing, and why I've been feeling quite anxious today. I talked in a previous video about wanting to change my prescriber, mainly because of the cost element. Now, I know when I say that the cost element in the UK to fund Mounjaro privately is not comparable to the cost in America, for example, where I think it runs into the thousands. However, in the UK, I think I'm with one of the more expensive prescribers, and actually, in terms of anything else, coaching or advice or support, I'm not really getting that from my prescriber. And during the times when I have reached out with questions or advice, it's taken a really long time to get a response. And then when I do get a response, it never normally is answering what I've asked, and it's just sort of generic signposting, mostly to my GP, even for things that aren't clinical. And so my view on that is that if I'm not getting the benefits of the cost, the coaching and the advice, and I'm only paying for the medication, I may as well do that at a cheaper rate. So I've researched a company for a little while now, and I bit the bullet yesterday, and I paid for I paid for 7.5 milligrams, submitted all my information, and then something dawned on me that as I was reading further, I may not get accepted, because the regulations, and there are various loopholes now that you have to go through. And now with, having lost quite a substantial amount of weight and my BMI no longer being in the obese range, I may not meet those requirements, and therefore I may not be entitled to continue to get Mounjaro. And whilst there are positives to that, because it's clearly stating that I'm in a better state of health and I'm, of different weight now, I'm not sure that I'm ready to go the remainder of my journey without Mounjaro. In all reality, I think last night compounded that thought. That was a bad habit just creeping back in. I have lost a huge amount of weight, I know that, but I'm also not anywhere near my target, and I'm not sure that I'm ready to go the rest of it without that tool, without that crutch of Mounjaro. The food voice is still there, and it's, better than it was, but I worry that if I don't have it at all, would that be the case? Have I done enough of that work to manage the remainder of my journey, or even sustain where I am now, which I've still got weight to lose on my own? And I think the answer to that is no. If anybody has had that experience and you've got any information or sort of guidance, it would be really helpful to know. And I think as well, what's compounded the anxiety is that I haven't really got anybody that understands what's happening, understands about the food voice. It's just like, oh well, just don't eat the sweets and the chocolate and the bad things, or if you're gonna, just eat a little bit. And whilst I know that that's great advice, and I understand about the nutrition around gaining weight, when you've had that food voice, that's not gonna help, and I suppose that compounds that isolation around what I'm doing and that anxiety. So all day I've been refreshing my email and going on their website to check if there's any update, and there isn't. So yeah, I'm just quite anxious about that, and I'm angry with myself that I didn't think about that, or perhaps read the relevant information before I cancelled my previous subscription and changed. So yeah, I guess it just feels like a bit of a downtime at the moment. Also not escaping the irony of building up the confidence to start vlogging about my journey and my experiences, and then having probably the most difficult week I've had since being on Mounjaro in terms of the food voice and the, you know, the things I talked about earlier. But I still feel motivated. You know, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I absolutely appreciate the ability to be able to use Mounjaro. And, you know, everybody's not that lucky. And I'm still really motivated to reach those goals. I'm just a bit worried that I'm not quite there yet in terms of doing it on my own. But yeah, I'll obviously have to see how that goes and what those updates are. And if anybody wants an update around that, I will share it. The other factor is, and I think this probably also addresses the fact that I'm not where I need to be mentally in terms of this journey on my own. And also bad habits is, so for example, when I used to go to Slimming World, I didn't follow the plan, but I used to go to Slimming World because there was a motivation in going each week. It didn't have a very long shelf life for me, but still there was an element of motivation. But I became really obsessed with getting on the scale. So I'd be on the scales all the time, in between, you know, every day. And it would be that if I'd gained weight, I was really dejected. It sort of, even if I'd say lost 60 pounds, if I gained 1 pound, you know, in between ways, I would be devastated. I'd be very much of the mind frame, it's all pointless. And I know that sounds silly, but that was a really strong feeling. And it'd be all pointless. And then that would, you know, propel me on to eating loads of food and you know, beginning to undo that hard work. Equally, the other way, if I stood on the scales in between a group and I'd lost weight, I'd be elated. But my mood and my day very much based on that. And so this time, and perhaps when I talked last time about not being in a psychological space last year to lose weight, even though I knew I had to, that was a part of it. Previously, and I don't know if I'm on my own in this, but it's become all consuming. You know, it monopolised every part of my life, and I was really conscious I didn't want to do that again. And so when I talked about beginning my weight loss journey last year, that's what I was talking about. And I'm conscious that I don't want to do that this time. I do weigh daily because that, you know, fulfills something. And also it's understanding those natural fluctuations. And I've you know, I've got a lot of, I know about nutrition, and I've looked at various different things over the time that I've been learning about fat loss and so on. And I know that actually weighing daily is sort of quite a well recognised way to do it. And I also know that so for example, previously, just using Slimming World as an example, because I used to attend Slimming World, can't tell you how many times I've joined and rejoined, but I used to attend. And if you're only weighing once a week, and let's just say I continue to weigh on a Thursday, every other day of that week, I could have had a 3 pound weight loss, but for some reason my body fluctuated on the Thursday, and then I go to group on a Thursday and it's gone up, and then you're, you know, angry, upset, it all feels pointless. And I'm conscious of that cycle, and it's helpful to me to weigh daily. It helps me to understand what's happening and with my body and recognize patterns. So for me, that's why I do it. I think because of how I've been feeling this week, though, when I've gotten on the scales and it's been going up, it's fed back into those old bad habits and the ways that I'm feeling. So it hasn't spurred me to repeat old behaviours of, you know, just eating loads of food and thinking, oh, what's the point of anything? It hasn't, but I do wonder if a little bit yesterday and this week, it's just been a little bit of a bad habit week. But I still feel really, really motivated, and I still feel really grateful that I've had the opportunity to use Mounjaro. I'm just really worried that I'm not ready to step away from it yet. And equally, it wasn't ever planned to step away from it yet. So so therefore, I'm a little bit annoyed with myself that I maybe made that decision, and that could be a possible outcome of it because I hadn't considered that. So I think I talked about it before, but I formally weigh on a Thursday, and that's when I sort of log my weekly weight loss. And in terms of what I had planned to go to the gym today, or go to the gym and do some exercise. The reality is I still feel rubbish. I feel really sore, and so therefore I'm not going to do that today. I also haven't eaten anything, and I'm not going to push myself to, go and work out when I feel rubbish and I haven't therefore been able to eat. I am still keeping up the fluid intake. I try to drink around 2 litres of water a day. I've seen some really good advice by people that are vlogging online about their Mounjaro journey and keeping up liquid, so I am doing that, and I have done that, but it hasn't felt great today. So I plan to, depending on how I feel tomorrow, go and do some exercise and get out and do some walks, and just have small portions of food, and hopefully I'll feel a bit better later and I can eat something, even if it's only something light. Also conscious of how many times I say so hopefully I will have a positive update regarding being prescribed the 7.5 milligrams of Mounjaro, and it maybe will start to become a better week. Part of that is mind frame, isn't it? And how it feels in the grand scheme of things. These things that I'm talking about aren't hugely probably that significant, but they feel quite significant this week. Maybe that's because they're all together. And in the grand scheme of things as well, having a small handful of pick and mix, which I didn't even eat all of, it could have been a lot worse. And when I compared those yesterday to previous Keely's eating habits, where I could quite easily consume 2 family bags of sweets, then chocolate, then crisps and sausage rolls, and eat all of those meals, that goes to telling me that's why I was the weight that I was. And so therefore, when you compare those, it's massive. So maybe it's just the whole thing at the moment. It's just been one of those weeks, and they can't all be great weeks, can they? But I am trying to remain positive, even if it doesn't sound like it. So if you've made it through this video, thank you so much. And again, thank you for watching the videos, liking and subscribing. That's just crazy. If you do want to, please do comment, share your journeys or any advice around anything I've discussed in this video or the others, would be brilliant. Or even just to say hello, and please like and subscribe if you want to, and if you want to, effectively. I am going to try to do daily videos at the moment, and then do like a weekly weigh video. Possibly do a video of my jab, if I have one beyond this week. And if that's something that you would like me to include, let me know. If you've got any questions or any advice or anything you think I could include that would make these videos more interesting, that would be really, really helpful. Take a shot for how many times I've said And yeah, just have a lovely rest of the evening, and thank you again.